Alright, so the next movie I watched is called a lot of different things, actually. A lot of times when a movie can't market itself, they try different titles to sell it. Um, I think officially the title of this movie is Demon Island, but it's also being called Survivor Island, among, I believe, a number of different names. Even the DVD cover for this has Pinata at the top, but in like really like small letters that are divided out to where you might not notice it at first. So I guess the title in the DVD is Pinata Survivor Island. And that's really what this whole thing is trying to hide from you in all the marketing is that this movie is about a killer pinata. And it's not joking. It's taking it solely seriously. The intro of this movie goes on forever. There's a voiceover narration trying to explain to you how there's an evil pinata, imbued with powers or evils or whatever. In any case, I mean, it sets up to the fact too we are going to be dealing with a killer pinata in this movie. The thing is, the pinata doesn't really look like any pinata I've seen before. It looks more like one of those like little tiki dudes, if you know what I'm talking about. Um, is it's got like a really big head with like really angry red eyes, sort of a smallish body for most of it until it turns into a transformer later in the movie. Like, I mean, I could see it being like a pinata. It just didn't. When I think of like the platonic image of a pinata, this thing doesn't come to mind. In any case, it's framed as a pinata. Um, it's evil. In any case, how this is set up is a bunch of college students are going on a trip to an island that has been bought by their school or something, and it seems like an extracurricular, like fraternity sorority mixer thing, where they're playing a game of trying to collect underwear on the island or something. It's a really loose frame for this movie. So they're around on the island, just typical college folk doing their collegey thing, I guess. Uh, and they all split up into like pairs of two, a frat member and then a sorority member, and they are just sort of wandering the island. And of course, one of them bumps into this pinata thing and starts whacking it with a stick, and it gets angry and it starts killing people and just sort of tracking them down one by one. So that's about it for like the introductory plot of this thing. The probably there are two really bad aspects. All the aspects of this movie are bad, but two particularly stood out. One of it was the acting. Whew, this is some bad acting. Just I don't. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievably bad acting. Like for honestly, the movie isn't horribly well, like poorly shot. It's not great, obviously. It's a movie about a killer pinata, but yeah, that didn't stand out so much. But the acting, I don't know if this director's never worked with actors before, or actually directors. It's a pair of directors that have made a bunch of different crap. Um, but they just sounds like they're reading it straight off a page and not even particularly super good at reading. Uh, I hope I can find some clips of this because it's just really unbelievable how bad all the acting is. The next thing, and probably the biggest thing that's just impossible to miss, apparently when they initially filmed this movie, they weren't exactly sure what the monster was going to look like. Uh, at first, I think they actually had a guy in a rubber suit, at least according to the trivia I read about it, chasing them around, and then it wasn't scary enough, so they took out the rubber suit and then threw in computer-generated monster, the best they could afford. And clearly they didn't have much money, because the best they could afford looks really super bad. Um, so it is a really, ugh, I mean, I hope I can find some clips of this thing because nothing can really do it justice. It's sort of, I mentioned that it transforms towards the end of the movie into like a flying pinata thing, but it has like its face like crumbles up and there's like lava and stuff under it, but it all looks so. It's better than Food Fight CGI, which I'll talk about either before this or after this or something. Food Fight is on the queue. Uh, but it's not much better than that. It's really bad CG, and it's really poorly integrated into the movie because it's really clear when you have a scene with the actors that they are not anywhere near where the monster is. There's no sense of perspective of where they are in relation to the monster. So in scenes where they're, say, hiding behind a tree, you have no idea where the monster is. In fact, there's one scene where they're hiding behind a tree, and then an entire night passes. So I assume that they were hiding behind that tree all night, and the monster was on the other side of the tree, just confusedly wondering where they were for an entire night. That wasn't good. Yeah, so the monster looks really, really, really bad, and there's no sense of perspective of where the monster is in relation to them. They're also, they do this thing that's clearly trying to rip off, like, Terminator and Predator, to have, like, monster vision, but the monster vision in this, whereas in Terminator and Predator, it's pretty clear what they're looking at. It's just like thermal imaging or, you know, a color filter thing. In this, it's so distorted, you have no idea what it's looking at, and it will linger in these monster shots for just forever, and it's all in triangles, and you only see these really bright red splotches. It looks bad. It doesn't add anything. It almost feels like they were trying to pad out some runtime with a few seconds here and there of monster vision. Yeah, it's bad. It's super bad. So I can't recommend this at all. This is a really bad, the bad acting and the bad monster. I mean, the pacing's also not great. I mean, it's certainly not the worst I've seen. It's not on a level of, like, Starfighters or, you know, this is like, if you can take just a small step below Uwe Boll movie, as far as the effects and the acting, like, just a little, like, you might not believe that that's a thing you can do to go below Uwe Boll. It's like in this limbo between Uwe Boll and Uli Lummel, who did Zombie Nation, which I talked about before. If you could find, like, a perfect middle ground between those two, that's kind of where this lives. Yeah, it's certainly better than Zombie Nation. But it's certainly also very, very super bad. Apparently AMC plays this thing on television sometimes, which, wow, they must have gotten a cheap deal on this. It's a time filler. Yeah, there's nothing notable. The characters are pretty forgettable. They try to do some drama stuff. None of the deaths are super great. I will note that I didn't catch this until the second or third death, but after the piñata kills somebody, it strings them up and then hangs them like a piñata. So it's like trying to turn people into piñatas, and then I noticed, oh, it's killing them with a stick. So it's actually it's like a revenge piñata. It's like forcing us, the people, to be piñatas by beating us with a stick and hanging us from trees. Which, I mean, that could have been such a great hammy idea. Like, I'm not a big fan of, like, the trauma style of bad movies where they're sort of intentionally bad and that sort of thing, but this could have used a little less of a serious take. Because even though the acting is super bad, they seem to be taking this movie pretty seriously in the construction. And if they had been a little more lax with this and sort of admitted the bizarre nature of this concept, it would have been a lot more fun and easy to watch. But took itself way too seriously. Yeah, I can't recommend this one because it's just boring, but I would recommend trying to find some clips of the monster. And maybe some clips of the acting, if you can find some good ones. I'll see what I can find to put in this video. But, yeah, whatever you want to call this thing. Whether you want to call it Piñata Survivor Island, or Demon Island, or whatever the other titles for this thing was. I would have called it the Attack of the Killer Piñata. And, again, don't take yourself so seriously. So that's whatever this movie's called.
Did the legend say anything about it coming to life?
Not that I recall.
How do you explain that? We were hitting it with a stone, trying to break it open to see what was inside. And when we finally cracked it...
On a deserted island, 12 college students will play a game.
Let's pair up!
But what they discover unleashes an ancient evil.
Somebody got hurt, so we're stopping the game.
Who? What happened?
Is it serious? It's hard to believe what I saw, but I know what I saw.
Someone or something's out there.
We have to get off this island.
It's time for us to stop being hunted and start doing the hunting.